Hi, everybody. Will here with this week's interview chair. Today we have Mr. Peter Frost from Melbourne, Australia. Hi, everybody. Will here with this week's interview chair. This week from Melbourne, Australia, we have none other than Mr. Peter Frost, Irish Setter breeder, Ale Albreed judge, and ex or past vice president of the Australian Kennel Club. Did I get everything?
I think so. Got enough.
There's got to be. There's a whole list more, but it would sound like I'm introducing Tiger Woods if I do it, so I won't do it. How are you, Peter?
I'm well, thanks, Will.
It's good to see you. You're spending some time in America with Sam, are you?
Yes. I've been judging in California and Montana, and I've come here for a holiday and a rest before going home.
And lucky you, I called Sam and I found out you were there.
Yeah, hiding, incognito.
All right. Well, let's begin. I'm going to start off with the one question, and let's see where it goes from there. How did you get started in the sport of dogs, Peter?
Well, we'd always had dogs in the family, and then at one stage bought an Irish setter, and I was walking in one night and a car pulled up and stopped and said, "That is the most beautiful dog. Where did you get him?" And I said, "Oh, whatever the kennel was." And I said, "Is he registered?" And I said, "Oh, yeah. He's got all his papers. Do you show him?" And I said, "No." And they said, "You should. He's good." And I went home and I thought, "I will." And I did. And he went out the first time and won a blue ribbon, and I was hooked.
Now, how old were you then, Peter?
21.
21. Just a youngster.
Yeah. Well, I still am.
Me too. So where did it go from there?
It went to showing him, titling him, buying a bitch from one of the top breeders in Australia from Sydney, breeding on, and then it gradually progressed from showing to going onto the committee of the Irish Setter Club, Victoria. Then
I think you're going across a lot. I think you're giving us the Coles notes of Peter Frost. I want to know the real stuff from you. You got your bitch from. Do you remember where?
Yeah, Norva Hamilton, Quailmore Kennels.
Oh, I know Nora. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was it. And then I was lucky enough to have a great person who bred Irish setters, but was probably the top English setter breeder, called Joan Christoph, and she took me under her wing and said, now we'll look around and look at what your bitch needs and look, blah, blah. And she said, "I think you should, there's a good dog." And so I used the dog, and Joan became the mentor, and everything, it just went from there, and it just evolved. It's one of those things that does evolve. You do get to this point, and then you think, "I'll try the next point." And it's like becoming a judge. Well, I never really thought about becoming a judge, and I started off doing the sporting, or what we call the gun dog group. And once I'd finished that, I went on and did the terrier group, and by the time
how did you get involved in judging then? How did it evolve from you showing this Irish setter that someone saw you walking to being a judge?
Well, I probably looked at what they did in the ring, and I thought I could do that better. Oh, if that's what it takes to be a judge, I can qualify. No, I don't know. It was just one of those things that just naturally evolved. I suddenly thought I might, I'd done a lot, I'd enjoy showing, and I still do.
How long did you show dogs before you decided to be a judge?
Probably 8-9 years.
Okay.
Maybe more. Thinking back, yeah, probably.
So were you judging by the age of 30?
Starting, yeah.
Yeah, and now you're only 35 now, so you've progressed.
Oh, I was a rapid learner, accelerated learner. Yeah.
So you were showing dogs for about 7 or 8 years. Was it always Irish setters?
No, I've had an English setter and a Gordon setter. And the English setter, no. She came to me because somebody, as I said, the woman, Joan Christoph, had this bitch came in and was from her lines, but and the people didn't want it, so they were looking for a home for it. And I said, well, look, give it to me. I can fit it in at the moment.
What kennel was Joan from?
What kennel? Tyburn.
What? I'm sorry?
Tyburn. Tybyrn.
So how did you meet Joan? Just at a dog show?
Yeah. Actually, very funnily at a dog show. I pulled up at a dog show and they pulled up beside me and I got out of the car and the lady in the car next door got out and banged her door of the car right against mine. And her husband went out of his tree. Not that he damaged his car, it was a Mercedes. Not a worry about that. It was that she might have put a mark on my car. Look what you've done to that car. And I said, there's nothing here. It's fine. Polish off. And that was where it started. So he said, come into the caravan, but the RV for a cup of coffee. And I stayed from then on. It was just, and it was great. It was one of those things that evolved. It was just, and when I had my first litter, she said, now, you won't have to do anything. You may have to, but you won't have to. But there's always nice to have somebody there who knows, who's not attached to the things. And she said, ring me. And I rang her at midnight and I said, she started. And she said, I'll be there. And, she came out we were going and we'd get it all neat and tidy. And she'd say, oh, my God, she's having more. So she'd have another one. We got up to 16.
Good thing she was there. If I did my first litter, I'd be, 16.
Well, I'd have probably sat and watched. The bitch was doing quite well without me. But she was, and that's just it. Joan was one of those people you could ring at any hour of the day or night. She'd just drop everything and come, or you could talk to her and say, well, I need this or so-and-so. But it's sort of, it evolved. And then I kept one out of that litter and, so I bred on. And then I eventually brought one in from America, a dog. And so it's gone. And
which dog did you bring in?
Saxony's Evening Tide. The brother of Saxon.
Evening Reflection, Andrew's brother.
No, he was the brother of Snow in August.
Oh, Fonzie. Okay.
Fonzie, yeah. I got pick of the litter, and I picked the right one.
Everybody says that.
No. Everybody who saw Connor, from all the Americans who saw him and who saw Fonzie, kept saying, you got the right one.
Oh, good.
I must admit, when I looked at all the winning Fonzie was doing, and I'm thinking, Gene duped me. And then I looked and I actually saw Fonzie. I thought, no, I'd have had Connor. So
that's good. So the years. So you went over there and picked out Connor then?
No. I had originally. I fell in love with a dog at the Irish International in Michigan, a 9-month-old puppy. And I said to another Australian judge, he was there, who also had Irish setters. And I said to Peter Mangos, we were talking, he said, did you like what they did? And I said, yeah, but I would have done something different. And he said, you would have done something different. And I said, I'd have given the winner's dog to the 9-month-old puppy. And he looked at me and said, I could too. And that was Saxony's Evening Tide. Andrew, yeah, Evening Tide.
Evening Reflection.
Yeah. And that was Andrew. So after the show was over and everything was in, I went around and marched and said to Jean Roche, can I order a puppy? And she said yes. Well, we had a puppy and he broke a tooth. He broke a canine tooth and she was terrified about sending him. And I said, send him. It doesn't worry me and it won't worry our judges. I said, if I was judging and I opened the mouth and the bite's right and there's a broken tooth, well, these things happen. And somebody who I will not name had come to use one of Jean's dogs and wanted to buy the dog. And she said no. And she said, can I use him? And she said, he's not mine. He's Peter Frost's. And then when he broke the tooth, Jean rang that person because she had sent dogs to Australia. And she said, I'm trying to get in touch with Peter Frost and I've lost his phone number or something or other. And then the person rang back, Jean, a few weeks, a little while later, and said, I've been speaking to him. He no longer wants him because of the tooth. And she took him. She took him. And I rang Jean and I said, just let it go. We'll just leave it alone. It's fine by me. We'll wait and see. If you have to take the tooth out, because that was the concern, he'd been gnawing on the wire on the kennel. And I said, if you've got to take the tooth out, it might cause a bit of a realignment, and we'll worry about it. We'll see how we go. And I ran back and said, I don't care how we go, how the mouth is, I want him. And she said a few expletive words, and she said, but you didn't want him. So-and-so told me. And I said, I haven't spoken to so-and-so. And she said,
those so-and-sos.
Sorry?
I said, those so-and-sos.
Yes, that's a good way of putting it. And that was it. I couldn't get him back. So she said, I said, well, let's try again. And she said, okay, I guarantee you nothing will leave the yard until you say it's okay. And she rang up. She made it 2 bitches, creme de la creme, and one other one. I can't remember the other one because it didn't. And she rang up and she said, you now own 24 or something Saxony's Irish setters. And I said, oh, okay. How many bitches have you got? And she said, I think it was 13 bitches and 11 dogs or something like that. And I said, can I give you a present of 13 bitches? And she said, okay. I said, so you give rid of all those. And I'm not being funny. She rang on a regular basis and she'd say, this is when they're about 8 or 9 weeks old. And she'd say, I think the yellow one can go. She said, I'm pretty sure I said, fine, the yellow one goes. And we got down to 3 dogs. And she was backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards. And one was, what was Liam's name? There was Snow in August, my boy, and from a different size, she used a different sire in one of them. And she finally rang up and she said, it's the red boy. It's Redman. And I said, okay. And she said, no, I've been looking at them, and it's Redman. And I said, okay, fine. And I said, if you think it's him, it's him. And over he came. And, this big gawky puppy got out of, because I had to do quarantine. And he came out of quarantine and he was emaciated. He wouldn't eat in quarantine. I'd taken it. Jean said, you Aussies all eat lamb, don't you? And I said, yeah. And she said, I'll put him on Purina lamb and rice or whatever it was. Can you get it there first? So we checked, yeah, we get that. I took out the Purina lamb and rice. No, it didn't do any good. He came home and he was as happy as Larry, ate like a horse. As soon as he was a people person. Yeah. He just didn't like being the quarantine, even though it was a week. It had come down. It used to be 6 months, years and years ago, and then it went to 3 months, and then a month, and now it's, it was a week. No, it was a month. He had a month. It's now a week, and that month's nearly killed him. You were allowed to go visit him once a week. So once a week I went out and bathed him and fed him out there while I was there and played with him and things like that, and then to go away, and the next week he'd come back and I'd do it all over again. So that's where it sort of started. And then, the
How much did you show Connor?
Not a lot, because to be honest, he was exactly what I thought we needed. He got best in shows, but he was a little short. Jean and I discussed it when probably each have liked, as the ideal dog, an inch or an inch and a half longer. But I always thought the Australian bitches were getting longer and longer and longer. They were like freight trains. Half the dog was in and the rest was still coming around the corner of the ring. And he was only used 6 times because he was different, and, there's this big thing, And the people who used him, who was the top Irish setter breed in Australia, a guy called Keith McCarthy from Tara Glen, said to me once, after he'd virtually stopped every showing, and he said, of all the litters I bred, the best litter I ever bred was the Connor litter. I think he had 4 or 5 best in show winners out of him. And then another woman used him, and she got the number one bitch in the country. Carrie Payne used him in Canberra and had a dog that did multiple best in show winning. And the funny thing is, the moment they did, Will, everybody suddenly realises they should have used him.
Yeah.
Do you have him frozen? Yes. Can I use him? No. Yeah. Anybody who used him when he was alive could use him now he's dead. But no, I'm sorry, you can't. And talking of that, I'm going home to to help pick out. We've just had a letter from him, and he's been dead 20 years, from the granddaughter of the bitch that was the top winning bitch, who herself is an AI from a dog that had been dead 15 years. So this is sort of like Back to the Future.
Yeah. Well, that should be interesting.
Yeah, well, yeah. Look, it's amazing that it works. It shows you how far science and technology's come.
Oh my God, yeah.
I brought in semen from Opie, the Hackenberg's dog, Castlebar's command present.
Yep, I remember Opie.
Yeah, I brought in semen from Opie and had pup, and this was a whole new thing. It was very experimental, and the vet said, "You've never done this before," and I said, "That's okay, we'll give it a go." And I went out for the ultrasound, and he's doing the thing on the thing, and Scarlett's looking at him as much as say, "Do I get to pink the pink jello? Can I lick it?" And he said, "There's one, there's another, there's three." And I said, "Fine." And he said, "Oh, yeah." And the next time I went back, he said, "No, there's three." And I said, "That's fine. It's perfect. I don't care." And she has her puppies. And I rang him up and I said, "Well, some vet you are. She's had 5." And that was the first day I literally ever had, probably close to the first in the country. And, it was just, it's one of those things. I've always loved the look of the American dogs. There's things I don't know about them, obviously, but there's that sort of scopiness and a glamour, which I remember judging years ago with Rick Beauchamp, and we were at the judges' dinner, and he was sitting there and he said, "Peter's from Australia and they breed the best Irish setters in the world." And I just looked and said, "Oh, thanks, Rick, but you don't have to say that." And he said, "No, I'm not. He said, "I've said it before." He said, because you're willing to take the glamour from America and mix it with the soundness of England." And he said, "Get that dog in the middle that's glamorous and sound." And he said, "The English won't touch the Americans and the Americans don't want to touch the English." And he said, "But you just go right ahead and blend." And we do. We also blend the English Springer Spaniels, which are from the two countries are totally different. And they bring them in and they blend them down and come out with these dogs that, somewhere in the middle. But so I know it's just been one of those things. But I remember looking at Andrew with this 9-month-old puppy, and I could have just swept him out of the ring. And now I thought, that's it, that he had that look. And hopefully his grandson had it. Connor had it, and hopefully now Connor's son's going to have it.
Oh, that's exciting, Peter. I hope it works out. I'd be interested in seeing it.
Oh, well, there's 4 of them. There's a bitch and 3 dogs. And I was talking to the woman who's got them at the moment, and I said, "I love the bitch." And she said, "Yeah." And I said, "And I don't know which dog." I said, because they're all stacked up and she's doing videos and nothing leaves until I get home, and probably won't leave in 3 or 4 weeks after that. And I said, I'll look at this one, I think, yeah. And then you put the next one up and I think, yeah. The third one goes up and I think, yeah. And she said, "That's what we are." Her and her daughter, Jacinta's 31 or 32. And she said, "We keep sitting here saying, I like him. No, I like him. I like that one." And I said, and she just said, "I love this litter. I've never had so much trouble picking out of a litter." So, which is good, but
I think that's great, because you've been judging for quite some time now, and you're still just as passionate about breeding the dogs. I think that's great. You don't hear that a lot.
What's even greater is I'm in cahoots with somebody who passionately breeds, so they can do all the work and I can just sit there.
Yeah.
which is, but it's the best of both worlds, realistically.
That's great. So what year did you start judging?
About 82, 83, I think.
Oh, wow.
After about 10 years, I gradually got up that's when I finished the gun dog sporting group. So.
And you've judged all over the world now.
Yep. South America, Colombia, South Africa, New Zealand, Thailand, the States, Canada. That's about it. All around Australia.
Do you have any mentors that you would call your mentor in judging?
Not that I would call a mentor, but there are people that you look at and you think, you know what you're doing. You know what I mean? You can see them and you think, yep, you can walk in, you watch them walk into the ring and you know exactly what they're looking for and you can follow them and they're consistent. And I think that's what makes a good judge. Yeah. I mean, we all have our own opinion. I might focus. Somebody said to me, "You're into movement." And I said,
"Into what? Say it again."
Into movement.
Okay.
And I said, "Yeah, I can't help it." And it's not necessarily in the sporting group. And I remember years and years ago judging in California, and she died just recently, Marsha Hall Brown, and Marsha was sitting there, and I was doing the hound group, and I hadn't actually judged all the hound group, and it was an Irish wolfhound, and somebody said something, and Marsha said, "He'll have the wolfhound." And they said, what do you mean? She said, "Watch that dog go out and back." And she said, "Then watch it go round." She said, "It's as sound as sound, and that soundness will take that wolfhound." And it's just it's little things like, and one of the nationals, I was there, and Craig Hackenberg came up and said, "Pete, would you show a dog tomorrow?" And I said, this is before the best of breed class. And I said, "Oh, do you want me to show Opie?" And he said, "No, you're not showing Opie. I'm showing Opie." Sue Hayden asked me if I would show one of her dogs that she'd sold to this young person. And I said, "I'm not the best handler." I said, "I never have been a handler. And I said, but I'll give it a go." So I went round in the morning and I get the dog and I put my hand underneath him and drop him onto his front, because we don't do the, putting one leg in and one leg out. We tend to drop them down and I did that, and that was fine. And then I stacked him up and we got into the ring, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You're in that 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we get in and I go in for my 10. Went around the first thing in the morning, the dog was wet. They were blow drying him. When I went back to get ready to go into the ring, he was wet again and they were blow drying. This poor dog. We get into the first, going for our group in the first 10, and Claire Andrews came along and just pointed to me and pointed to the steward and 3 others. She pulled out 4 of us. And, I was the first one out of that 10, and I got down to about the last, I think it was the last 20 or the last something like that. It was second last cut, I think. And that was it. And the young couple who owned him was ecstatic. They didn't think this, he was a young dog, he just got his title, and they'd never seen him shown, they'd always shown him himself. And that night they introduced me to Claire Andrews. And Claire was, such a collector of Irish setter stuff. She said, "I remember you." And I said, "Yes." She said, "You showed to me today." And I said, "Yes," thinking, oh my God, I must have been that bad. She said, "I remember you for 2 reasons. That was the most magnificent tie I've ever seen. Where did you get it?" And I laughed and I said, "In Australia." And she said, "And the second reason?" And I said, "I know the second reason." And she said, "What was it?" I said, "There are 132 dogs and animals in the best of breed class, and only one had its tail held horizontally." And she said, "Exactly, and that took you a hell of a long way." Because, I years ago, previous ones I've been saying to Randy Kubas, "I don't know how you put up with those tails." And he says, "You Aussies are always fixated on the tails. They're fine." And I said, "Okay, yeah, they're fine." And a couple of years later, I was back at a national again, and Randy said, you know, you were talking and said about the tails. He said, we can't get rid of them now. And I said, no, it just spoils the whole outline of the dog for me. I said, it should be the extension of the back line at horizontal. And, you know, it's just little quirky things you watch. And, you know, I can watch judges and I think, yeah, they'll do something in this class and they'll do something different in that class. And I'm thinking, no, that's not really judging. I think the best judges were the old terrier people myself. The old terrier people, they were dog people and dog judges. And I think we sort of lost some of that. But no, I don't really have a judge that I would say is a mentor. There's some I watch and admire, you know, and I love watching their ring, you know, how they handle the ring, etc. like that. But no, I get in there and I do my own thing and I try to make it fun. As I say to the people, it's fun, but when I look at the dogs, I'm deadly serious. But it's not, you know, you're not supposed to be in there. And I talk to the dogs because I always believe if you're talking and the dog hears you talking to the owner, it thinks, well, he must know me. Or, you know, he must know them. And it settles them down. These, you know, you come up and you say nothing. The dog's looking at you thinking, who the hell's that?
Well, for sure. They get a little standoffish. Everybody's quiet like that. You're right. They relax more when they feel a almost you're friends with the handler or the owner. So
yeah, that's exactly right.
A connection.
Yeah. And then, you know, and I have plenty of time for dogs that aren't rigid little show dogs, you know, especially young dogs. If they, you know, I say just don't worry about it. If they can't go over them, I say take them out and back and we'll try it again.
Yeah.
And just play with them a bit and, you know, settle them down. And then eventually the one that's looking like you're going to kill it, suddenly he relaxes and just stands there as much as saying, well, this isn't that bad at all. So, but that's what it should be. I mean, I've had dogs that I've shown put off in the ring by a judge, and it takes you ages to get them back. You know, there's little things.
Well, they try to push themselves on the dog. The dogs tend to react. So
yeah, and some people when they're going over, you must find it too. Some people when they're going over the dog, they're virtually putting their weight on the withers. You don't have to. You know, and you can see the dog physically trying to hold itself up as this person's leaning, going down it.
Yeah.
So,
well, we're already asking them to do an unnatural thing, and then you get an official like that, and it's harder on the animals. So,
yes, it is. Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny when you're talking with the tails. When I was younger, showing dogs, there was I don't know if you remember Bill Brennan in Canada. Remember Bill Brennan?
Yeah,
an old gun dog guy.
Yeah,
and he used to always yell at me. He'd say, "It's a tail, not a sail, William." And he'd always smack my hand down. So that goes through my head every time. So.
Yeah, no, it's things come in and then they become the thing. But, you know, Claire, when she spoke in the after show dinner, she spoke about tails. Why are they holding them up? Blah, blah, blah. And I knew then that had to be something she think. And I did. It just was automatic. I'd never hold a tail up. I couldn't. It just wouldn't fit, you know, because we were virtually the same as that too. Put the tail down, you know. And I think I was lucky. I'm not a good handler. I'm the first person to admit it. But we don't have professional handlers in Australia. Everybody just goes out and shows their dogs, or, you know, if somebody turns up with 3 dogs, I need somebody to show. If somebody will say, "I'll show it," that's fine. But Keith McCarthy was the most brilliant handler. You know, he could take a pug and turn it into an Irish setter virtually. You wouldn't notice. And I think that made us all get better.
Well, it certainly does. Yeah.
You know, you look at this and you think, that's what I compete with. And I remember at Melbourne Royal, which is our big show, which has about 4,500 dogs. And we're in a class, must have been a class of bitches, I think. I mean, they're all in the class. And Keith sort of shuffled and readjusted. So everybody else around him shuffled and readjusted and shuffled and readjusted and, you know, move a bit forward and move a bit forward. And the steward came down and there were, I think, about 4 of us. And he just looked and said, he was a great steward. And Bill looked at us and said, do you want me to wait until you get to the other side of the ring and send you back in line, or do you want to go back now? And we looked and we were probably a good yard in front of everybody else. But we hadn't noticed because everybody was, Keith had shuffled, we'd shuffle.
Yeah.
He learnt, and he was very good too. He would virtually give advice, don't do that, do this,
Was Keith an Irish setter person as well?
He was Tara Glen Irish setters.
Oh,
he
okay,
was probably the top Irish setter person. He and Norma Norma Hamilton with Quailmore, they vied for it, but I think Keith would probably win. He died not long ago either, so there's,
Yeah.
we're losing, and we lose a lot of breed knowledge too, which is the sad thing.
For sure. Well, that's how I met Simon when Simon was showing for Norma.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's how I knew him through that red crazed dog.
Yeah. And then, but it's just, and they had their secrets, but they would share, share basic information. And I think that's what we are. I think that's what is missing so much now. Everybody, I find a lot of people, it's like, this is mine and you can't touch it. You can't have this and so on. And you say to them, that is the most beautiful gloss on the coat. What do you use? Oh, I'm not telling you. Oh, really? Okay, fine. Things like that. But I think, we've become a little, I don't know, I think it's probably it's the sort of social media age that you've got to get in, get out and be gone. And we find now that people don't sit around. We used to all sit around the ring and watch. You watch all the breeds.
Right.
You'd sit there and that's how you learned an eye for a dog and for things like that. But we used to sit around and we'd socialise and that. Now they don't. They sit in their gazebos or their own little area, and nobody really socialises with anybody. It's taken a lot of the fun out of dog showing.
It's true. It's true, Peter. I remember being a youngster, sitting in the benches of the bench shows and just listening to everybody talk, and that's what I did. Oh. My parents have to drag me out of there, but I wanted to listen to them. So,
well, I think in Australia, there's probably each state's probably only got one bench show left.
Yeah, we don't have any in Canada anymore.
No, that's like Melbourne Royal with its 4,500 there benched, Sydney Royal, Brisbane Royal, and so on. But I think we've become, a lot of them. We don't have times.
Well, there's just so much distraction now for everybody, and that's you're right. The age of the social media. There's just so many distractions that sometimes dogs take second seat. Or
they'll come to the show and spend the entire time on their phone.
Right.
It's just one of those things that happens, and but. That's the way of the world. And we don't have times like when you're judging, it says at 10:15, you've got to start this breed so they know. We don't. And what's now happened, I find, is that people will ring up and say, I've got a Weimaraner. What time do you reckon I need to be there? Oh, you need to be by 11:30. They come about 11:20, they show, and if they hadn't won, they go. Whereas before they used to come early and sit around and, do the lunches and
watch the judging. I love going to a dog show and just sitting there and watch the judging. So.
Yeah. I mean,
what do you find? Sorry, go ahead.
No, go on.
What do you find, because you've judged all over the world, what are the differences of judging, let's say, in your country, Australia, as compared to North America?
Look, the judging's the same. The hard part for anybody coming in here is in Australia, our shows are electronic. The stewards have iPads. The judges never touch the actual book. That's the steward's job. And you often get people and you'll say, now you don't have to do anything. I don't have to do anything. No. The steward will tell you this is your intermediate bitch class or whatever it is. And they're all, number 16 is missing, but the rest are all present. And now they just do it electronically on a pad. And as soon as it's over, it gets zapped straight up to the thing. And at the end of it's all printed out. And at the end of the day, you're given a printed electronic copy of the catalogue, the whole works.
That just seems too efficient, Peter.
It's like anything. Well, when it first came in, the stewards threw their hands up in the air. Oh my God, this is never going to work. Now, I can't work unless you've got show manager. That's one of the things. Oh yeah, we're doing show manager. Fine, good. Yes, there's a couple of companies and some, they'll use this one, and it's great, And I've actually stewarded on as well. Occasionally, I'll do a stewarding stint, and it's that easy. So that difference is fine. The other big difference I find, well, I don't really find it as a difference, is our champions stay in their class. We don't have a champion class. So if you've got an outstanding dog that's through at 15 months, it stays in the junior class. It stays in the 12 to 18-month-old class. So when you're standing in front of the lineup for what we call challenge dog, you call winner's dog, and the junior might already have its title, and it makes you look further up and down the line. But look, once you get the hang of it, the only thing I have trouble with is the owner handler. And that's because half the exhibitors have trouble with it. They enter own handler and I say, I was doing it last week. I thought, you've got an asterisk. Do you own a handler? No, I'm not eligible. I said, well, look, you've got one. No, it's not me. No, I'm not. But no, I don't find much difference. I mean, when you stand in the ring, you're judging the dog, and the rest of it's just the add-ons. I find it funny. I mean, Australia is FCI, but it's only an associate country, so we're not really FCI. Don't let them hear me. But I was judging in Colombia, and I was doing the toy group. And something which is, I wish the kennel clubs would get together, is breeds appear in different groups around the world. And I'm judging the toy group, and the steward came up, and I'd gone off and learned some Spanish so I could give instructions, and they gave me a steward who spoke perfect English, and I was really annoyed. But anyway, she came up and she said, Senor Frost. And I said, please call me Peter. Peter, do you mind if we do not follow the catalogue? I said, doesn't worry me, but we quite often don't follow the catalogue. And I said, oh, really? Okay, fine. She said, well, your next breed is Chihuahuas. And I said, yes. She said, well, Juan is in that ring, Javier is in that ring, and Carlos is in that ring. And I said, yes. She said, they show the Chihuahuas. I said, okay, fine. Whatever you like. So I can remember doing a Shih Tzu, which was in the toy group. For us, it's in non-sporting.
Right.
I'm going over the Shih Tzu.
It's non-sporting here too.
Yeah. And she came up behind me as I was just about to send it off to run, and she said, okay to do poodles next? And I said, yes. So I sent the dog over. I turned around, and there was a white standard poodle standing behind me. And I looked at it and thought, that is the biggest toy poodle I have ever seen in my life. So the FCI put all poodles into the toy group.
Wow.
And it's like, I know they have 10 groups, but, you got to at least line some of them. Standard poodles, I wouldn't really call toy, but they classify their group now as toy and companion dogs. But, you're standing there, and I can remember doing the group. I'm looking along, and there's this standard poodle. Everything's down like, 10, 12 inches mark, and there's this standard poodle. And he was black.
But you choose one best of breed.
Yeah, you choose one for best of breed. No, they do there's 3 classes.
Oh, there's 3 varieties, okay.
3 varieties. And I'm standing looking at this black dog, and I'm thinking, at that stage, I wasn't fully licensed for poodles. And I'm thinking, well, if, I can't take my eyes off him. I said, thank you, I'll have the poodle. So I bring out the poodle, and then I'm doing best in show, because they allow you to do breed, group, and show. They don't have which I think is a great idea, where you have to have at least 2 opinions on the day. And I'm looking down, and there's 10 dogs in the lineup. I'm looking along thinking, yeah, I'm pretty much done. Yeah. I'm not really licensed for the poodle, but I like it. And I said, thank you. I said, if you're going to be wrong in a big way. And I said, can I have the standard poodle, please? And the president of the club comes up, and Fabian says, oh, I am so pleased you like the poodle. They flew in especially to show to you. Thinking, why would they show to me? I'm not a poodle person. I'm not licensed for poodles, but fully licensed, but I'm like provisional. I'm thinking, okay. And he said, you don't know who that dog is, do you? And I said, no. And he said, come, we'll introduce you. And he goes over and he said, whatever the dog's name, Maverick, something or other, a Sabre of Maverick or whatever it was. And I said, oh, yeah. And he said, best in show at Crufts, best in show at the Eukanuba World Show. And I said, where did they fly in from? And he said, New York. And I said, New York. And he said, he lives in Peru. He's on his way home. And I just looked up and said, thank you, God.
Yeah.
But, you know, the other thing I find really funny between, say, Australia and America is you have three winners, best of breeds for Cocker Spaniels, and we have one. We have
one here too.
In Canada.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the Americans have miniature and standard Dachshunds, all in the same. They don't split them. We split the Dachshunds.
We split them as well. Yeah.
We've got 6. We're about to get 9. We're getting one of those, what are they called, Rabbitohs or some little miniatures. But, you know, I don't really find it different, apart from the fact that you have the best of breed classes, which we don't, so that it's quite easy to go down the line. But something I do like we have is we do best of breed and runner up, because the number of times, you've probably seen it, where you have, say, 2 Irish setter dogs that are clearly better in quality than the best bitch, and yet one of them just gets, I'm sorry. So we go best of breed, we bring the second dog in and you can have runner up. At least you acknowledge what you consider, in your opinion, to be the second best exhibit of the breed there that day. But, just thinking of funny times, I judged in California. I was doing the Irish Setter Club of the Pacific or something, and I was down to 3 dogs, the veteran and these 2 dogs. And I said to the veteran, look, I love him, but now you can go over there. And I kept working these other 2 dogs. And finally I pointed to this one and said, that one. And I said to the other person, it was so close. I said I could have either of them. And I gave the ribbon out, and they said, do you want to know the funny thing? This is Saxony's Snow in August, and this is Saxony's blah, blah, blah. And she said, yes, you owned all 3 of them. You owned both of them. And I said, were they the other 2? And she said, yes, they were the other 2. And Liam went to California and Snow went off to but it was just like this. It was this weird thing. I'm between these 2 dogs. Somebody said afterwards, and they said, well, you obviously like the style of dog you like. And I said, yeah. But I said, I appreciate other styles. I can quite happily judge English dogs. They're not like ours. Or it's like the golden retrievers, which I judged I was doing in California, and I went in at lunchtime. Ken Murray said, he was president of the club, I think. Ken Murray said, I'm sorry we've got you stuck right down the back there. He said, but that's where the sporting dogs are always. So, and he said, we kept thinking we can't have an international judge right down in the corner. And I said, it's been so entertaining. I said, it's fine. I don't care where I judge. And I said, I've had the time of my life. I said, I arrived this morning, and I said there were 13 or 15 tables there. As soon as I started judging, there was a golden retriever on every one. And for the entire morning of judging, they have done nothing but water those dogs down and blow away. And they've just gone from one to the other, from one to the other. And one of the other judges turned around and she said, oh, yes, Peter, don't you know the golden retrievers, they're the new poodles of the dog world. They spent all morning fluffing these poor golden retrievers.
I know.
But,
I just started judging, Peter, and I find that breed's a very difficult breed to judge. So just because they've changed so much. So.
Yeah, out of curiosity, do you have many? See, ours are mainly the old English style. I can see both. I think the American style is probably a little sounder than we have. They've got more leg. Ours are getting long and low, and they have a roll. The head's different. But once you look at the first one, you think it's okay. It's different. I can live with that.
Yeah,
and you just.
I was raised on English dogs up here, but we have an influx of both now. So you You learn to adjust your eye to both.
Yeah, and you do, and they fit in. You can look at them, and it's like, people at home to me say, "How can you like those American Spaniels?" And I say, because I can read the standard and I can see the dog. They might be the extreme left-hand end of the standard, but they're still in it. And I said, they're never oversized. They're this and the thing. And I said, they're so eye-catching. But they are. But the breed I find the most difficult to come over here and judge is Labradors.
Mm-hmm.
They're big, and to me they're just too big. And we were talking about it up in Missoula, in Montana, and somebody said there was, and I said, they're just so big and they're sort of gross and that. And this person looked at me and said, "Well, you might get them out of the boat. They probably couldn't swim. We called them bob. They could bob with the decoys." And then they looked at me and they said, "The best part is you'd need a friggin' winch to get it back into the boat." And I said, and I did the mission circuit in California the week before, and I did labs. And I went to the classes and pulled out a class bitch and gave it the breed. And this woman sort of looked quite shocked, and she said, "I don't really win often." And I said, "Because I look different." And I said, "That's why you're winning. You look different." And I said, "You look like what we have at home." I said, "Your dog looks fit for purpose." I said, "That dog could swim, retrieve, and get itself back." And it was interesting. For the next 3 days of the 4-day circuit, she got the breed and got it pulled out in the group and got second or third in the group. And she came up and she said, "It must be you. You started it." And I said, "No, I didn't." I said, "It's just you've had 2 Australians judge." And I said, "That's a start." But it's dogs change, and and it's one of those things as a breeder and as a judge, you are sort of slightly responsible. It shouldn't be, but you put up a dog with such and such, and everybody's, then somebody else will put it up, and then all of a sudden people want to use it. They never look at. I don't think a lot of the people now look at the bitch and think she needs this. I need a dog that's got that. I don't care about the dog. I don't care about. I might hate the owner. I might do whatever it is, but it's got there. And it's like the oodles, which I think are. And I'm often on the Kennel Club stand at the Melbourne Royal, and people will come up and say, "Have you got any information on a Labradoodle or Cavoodle or something?" And I'd say, "Sorry, it's not a breed we recognise." "Oh, that's just because it's..." And I say, No. I have Irish setters. They started as a crossbred dog. I said they were spaniels and this and that and everything else. And I said, but what happened was I had a bitch that was good here but needed something there. So I looked around and found the dog that had that something there. I said, these oodles, I said, they're just bred. People put together one of those and one of those. They never look at the dogs.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, and that's the problem, because we have a limited register where we register every puppy, but you can put them on the main register or the limited register, which means not to be bred with, or basically they won't be registered, but things like that. When you sell it as a pet, you've got no real control over it once it's gone, and they get home and they've got a Labrador and down the corner's got a poodle that's also on the limited register, and away they go. So, but I think eventually that they're going to come in. Those breeds will come in if they can finally get themselves organised to, do the right thing, do the 5 generations of development register and do that. But I think the problem is a lot of them can't be bothered.
Yeah. You hit the nail on the head by saying do the right thing. So,
yeah,
as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah,
do all the right things.
Yeah. And, not everybody who breeds pedigree dogs does the right thing, but and I don't think pedigree dogs sell themselves enough. They don't sell the health aspects of our dogs. That we do every health test we can possibly do. The Irish Setter Club spends tens, hundreds of thousands of dollars on developing tests for possible things in the breed. Well, these people don't, and they just. And we've I mean, we're facing a bit of a backlash. I think it's probably worldwide, but when I was president, I had the Premier of the state on the phone one afternoon with the head of the agriculture department. We were talking about, what we should do and what we shouldn't do. And I said to him, we do this and we do that. And he said, and I said, listen, I'll explain it like this. I said, there's a disease called PRA. Explained what that was. And I said, right, say there is a test for Irish setters. I said, every Irish setter in Australia has been tested PRA. Very clearly. We started off straight away and got in and said, do it now. If you do this generation, you save somebody out of the next generation and so on, and get the old ones while they're still there. And I said, so there's a test for PRA, and say there's a test for golden retrievers. If I cross my Labrador with my golden retriever, neither test works. They're breed specific. Really? And I said, yep. And he said, right. And at the end of the conversation, he was great. He was really quite good about it. And he said, okay, what we're going to say is that Dogs Victoria, because we've all changed our names over there, Dogs Victoria will be the benchmark. The others are going to have to match you. And I said, match us when they can, but sometimes they can't. They can't match you on some breed test because there aren't tests. But, but it is a matter of do the right thing. And it's also a matter of, I think it's a matter of encourage too. When you get new people there, it's up to other exhibitors and it's up to judges to make time to work with them, and too often now, I turned up with the first guy virtually to show, and a couple of the Irish setter people came over and said, now listen, you need to do this and you need to do that, blah, 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 blah. Now, right, we'll come and show you. And at the show, they said, come on, we'll show you how to trim him up. Let's do the coat. And, of course, in those days, we did it all by thinning scissors, none of these electric things. And those sort of people, they're around, but there's not enough of them. I don't think there's as many people now. And I don't think as many people who are showing forget they started somewhere. They just didn't miraculously get to this point in time. And that's what I find when I'm judging too. If I get somebody in the ring who's, the steward will say, this is a new exhibitor, well, that's fine. I'll give them extra time. I don't give them the dog any extra consideration, but I give them time and go out and do this. No, come back here. If the dog starts to hop along, stop and start again. Oh, okay, right. And that's much better. And stand it up and see what I'm doing here. And I had a girl with I gave it the owner handler group with an Anatolian sheepdog, and quite un-Anatolian. It was as friendly as friendly. You're going over it, the tail's going like this. And I saw it at one stage. There was a young kid in a wheelchair being pushed by, and the dog's got its head right in on that. And I said, she said, this is his first weekend I'm showing him. And I said, right, come with me. After I'd finished, and I had no more connection to have to do it. I was going to see it again. And I said, right, now come around here. And a couple of the others who were with her went around, and I said, now, right, stand him up. And I said, no, stand him up. The legs have to be. And I said, now, when you do the back, do the inside one first, then lean under the dog or over the dog, whatever you like, and do the outside one last so that it doesn't have the weight on it, and you'll keep more turn a stifle. And I was watching her in the ring the next day, and I saw her going, she's doing this and she's doing that. And she came out and she said, did he look better? And I said, yeah, he did. But, I mean, that's the whole point. We all start off and there's, so many people just won't give new exhibitors the time. They just, We've
almost become elitist at some point. I think it's getting better now, but we went to a phase here anyway where it almost felt some of our exhibitors were becoming elitist and weren't accepting new exhibitors and weren't giving them the time that they need. It's definitely, since COVID, it's definitely getting better. I find that people are giving people more time and trying to help out here. Yeah, anyway.
I think you're right. I think COVID made people a lot more people aware, made people certainly more family aware.
Yeah.
And I think they're more aware of people, but they arrive and they do their thing, and get out of the way, I'm on my way into the ring, type thing. But I love the exhibitors. I had one at the Irish Theatre National when I did the bitches in St. Louis. And there were, 273 bitches, and I did the same thing. Set them up here, over and back to that corner, then around to the end of the line. Set this one, over and back to the corner, and somebody went that way. He just ran off to my left, and he came back, and I said, asked a question. He said, yeah. And I said, 272 others have gone to that corner. Why would you go to that corner? And he looked and I said, you obviously haven't watched. And he went, I'll go again. I said, too late now. I said, I did watch you go. I said, but why don't you follow the exhibitors? I should tell a joke. I should tell on Kenny Wall.
Yes, you should.
Oh, this is a good one. Kenny Wall, I'll get my group of 10 in the bitch class. And I'm just about to set one off, and I'm right in the corner, and there are a whole lot of people just sitting on the other side of the ring because they could hear virtually everything I said. They were there. And I said to this woman, excuse me, ma'am, could you set your dog up? I'm not next. And I said, I'm looking, and she's there. And I said, could you set your bitch up, please? I'm not next. And I said to the one who was about to run, could you hang on a minute? And I said, how do you mean you're not next? And she said, Ken Wall's next. And I said, well, where is he? And she said, he's over there. And I look over, and he's over where his setup was outside. And I said, do you want to be judged? And she said, yes. I said, right, well, you're next. So send the bitch out and back, and I go over her bitch, and I get to the end of the 10, and there's Ken Wall. And I said to him, I'm sorry, you left the ring. I assumed you didn't want to be judged. And he looked and he said, I'm sorry, sir, I had to go to the bathroom. And I said, don't lie to me. I said, the bathrooms are over there to the left. You were over there to the right. And he went, little white, and he said, yes. He said, well, do you know what it's like when you come to a show with not enough help? And I said, yes. It's worse when you have too much help. He said, I had 2 assistants arguing over a bitch. And I said, oh, so you didn't have to go to the bathroom? No. Well, the people sitting outside the ring were in stitches.
Oh, I'm sure.
And I said to him, I suppose the owners of this bitch would like me to go over her? And he said, oh, yes. I said, well, set her up then. But, and people do it. They don't listen. I said, when I had it, you get a marker when you've got these, it was, the dogs and the bitches there, and they had this marker, and it was a woman in a yellow jacket was the one I was keeping. And I wasn't keeping. If it was the first one, I wasn't keeping, but she was in yellow. I clearly remember it. And I said to this woman, she came back to me, and I said, see the lady in the yellow jacket? And I said, go in front of her, please. And I get the next one, and I'm going over the beach, and she came around, and I said, I looked along, and the woman I just sent that I wanted to see again was on the end of the line. And I said, okay, see the lady in the yellow jacket? And I said, right, I want you to go in front of her and see the lady on the end. Go over, as you go past her, say, the judge wanted to know whether you'd like to be seen again because he asked you to go in front of the yellow jacket. But if you don't want to be seen again, stay on the end of the line. He doesn't care. And I'm looking and watching, and she's turning around and I'm going, they don't listen. They don't listen. They get into the ring. They go in the opposite direction. Everybody's done something. Could you do this? No, I do that. Out and back to the corner, and they take off and do a try or something like, and you sit there and think, I suppose it was because I was a teacher. And, you expect people to vaguely listen. I'd say, I don't use them anymore, but I used to say, could you do a triangle? And I'd come back and I'd say, I'm a maths teacher. That bore no resemblance to a triangle. I don't even watch it was, but it wasn't a triangle. Do a triangle. Go to that corner, and back to me. Okay. But, and it's good fun when, you're there and you're thinking, don't these people...
I didn't know you were a teacher, Peter, because now that I've gone through, I'm looking at the questions and whatnot, you've answered every question without me asking you because you're educating. So it's interesting. Now you see you're a teacher. I was going to ask you, do you have any advice for judges? Well, you've covered that. Have you any advice for readers? You've covered that. And now you're educating others. I see the the politician in you too. So it's like,
Oh, yeah. Well,
you've
don't
done
worry.
everything for me.
Next week, I'll be interviewing Sam McDonald instead of you.
I have one more question for you, though.
Go for it. Yep.
Okay. If you were to meet the 20-year-old Peter now, is there any advice you'd give Peter?
Enjoy the ride. When I look back, Will, I look where taking a big, gawky red Irish setter puppy into the ring has taken me. It's taken me all around the world. I've met friends and made friends all around the world, places I'd never have ever gone to. And friends at home who absolutely you could depend on with your life. So I would say enjoy the ride and smell the roses as you go. Realistically, I think that's it. You're not playing for a sheep station. You're going to win some, you're going to lose some. You're going to lose some you should have won. You're going to win some you shouldn't have won. But just go along and let it happen.
Yeah.
And would I do it again? In a heartbeat.
That was excellent. Well, I won't keep you any longer. That was great, Peter. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, Will. And say hello to Jill. And Jill, I know Johnny's on the floor, but say hello to him.
Johnny's in the chair now over there. He's got to get tired of listening to us. So
good on you.
I will. Well,
okay. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Peter, and I will let you know when this comes out.
Okay. Thanks, mate. Bye.
Thank you, Peter. That was great. It was great to catch up with you. If you like what we're doing here, make sure you press the like, share, and subscribe button. And if you want to get a hold of me, you can get a hold of me at Will Alexander's Dog Show Tips at gmail.com. And don't forget about the podcast every Thursday, the Dog Show Drive with myself and Wayne Cavanaugh. Until next time.